Pope Robert Francis, I write to you not from a palace nor from the comforts of foreign embassies, but from the soil of my homeland, the land of Burkina Faso, where dust mingles with the blood of our martyrs, and the echoes of revolution are louder than the hum of foreign drones overhead. I am not writing as a man seeking approval, nor as one entangled in diplomatic pleasantries. I write to you as a son of Africa, bold, bruised, unbowed. You are now the spiritual father to more than 1 billion souls, including millions here in Africa. You inherit not just a church but a legacy, and in this moment of transition, while white smoke still lingers above Vatican rooftops, I must send this letter across seas and sands, beyond guards and gates, directly to your heart, because history demands it, because truth compels it, because Africa, the wounded and the rising, is watching. Your Holiness, we Africans know the power of the cross. We know the hymns, the prayers, the litanies. We have built churches with calloused hands and defended our faith with our blood. But we also know another truth, one that too many prefer to bury, that the church at times walked beside colonizers, that while missionaries prayed for our souls, soldiers looted our lands, that while your predecessors spoke of heaven, our ancestors were chained on earth. And even now, in this so-called modern age, we feel the chains still not of iron, but of silence, of indifference, of geopolitical games played in holy shadows. So I ask in the name of the mothers who pray on dirt floors and the children who learn catechism with empty stomachs, will your papacy be different? Will you be the Pope who sees Africa not as a periphery but as the prophetic center? Will you be the Pope who does not only visit slums for photo opportunities, but who dares to speak with rage against the forces that make those slums permanent? You see, Your Holiness, I am a man shaped by war, not wealth. I was not groomed for politics by Western institutions. I was not taught diplomacy in Paris. I learned leadership in trenches among the people where pain is teacher and hope is resistance. I lead a nation that was tossed aside by the world until we refused to be silent. We were told we were too poor to be independent, too weak to be sovereign, too unstable to resist. But I tell you this with the thunder of ancestors in my voice. We are done asking for permission to exist. We are done pleading for validation from powers who exploit our minerals while preaching morality. And we are done, absolutely done, watching global spiritual leaders turn their eyes from Africa's cries because the politics are inconvenient. Your Holiness, I speak now not only for Burkina Faso, but for a continent too long patronized. Africa is not a continent of pity, we are a continent of prophets. Prophets who were jailed, exiled, and murdered for daring to challenge the empire. And you, now that you wear the ring of St. Peter Mazisite, will you walk in the path of the prophets? Or will you too be a prisoner of politics?
Excellency President Ibrahim Traoré, President of the sovereign nation of Burkina Faso, son of the African soil, defender of his people. May grace and peace be multiplied to you through wisdom, courage, and truth. I received your letter not as a political communique, nor as a demand echoing through diplomatic channels. I received it as the cry of the soul, powerful, principled, and painful, from a son of the continent that has known too much loss, too much silence, and too many broken promises. I have read your words, not once, but many times, and each reading pierced deeper than the last, for in your voice I heard not merely the anger of a president, but the righteous cry of a continent, long wounded by the dual blades of neglect and exploitation. Let me begin now with defense, but with confession. Yes, the Church has, at moments in history, stood beside colonizers, when it should have stood beside the crucified. There were chapters, some long, some shamefully brief, where the mission of salvation became entangled in the machinery of subjugation, where the banner of the cross was hoisted beside flags of empire, and the teachings of Christ were diluted by the ambitions of kings. For these sins of omission and commission, I bow my head in repentance. No institution, however sacred, is above self-examination, and if the Church is to remain a beacon, it must not only shine light outward, it must shine it within. You asked, will this papacy be different? And to that I reply, not only will it be different, it must be. For too long the African voice has been heard only in whispers. Your leaders have been praised only when they were pliable, and demonized when they dared to defy unjust systems. Your resources have been extracted while your people were left to scavenge what was theirs to begin with. But Africa is not a charity case. Africa is not a patient waiting for the West to administer spiritual or political anesthesia. Africa is the cradle of courage, the wellspring of song, the pulse of prophecy. It is not the world's burden, it is its teacher. Let me speak plainly, as you did, President Traore, on colonial legacy. President Traore, you spoke of chains not only of those that bound the bodies of our ancestors, but the invisible ones that still clutch at the soul of Africa. Let us speak truth, not as adversaries, but as men burdened with memory. Colonialism was not simply a political conquest, it was a spiritual betrayal. It was not just the theft of land, but the attempted erasure of identity. Entire civilizations, with their poetry, their proverbs, their cosmologies, their sacred rhythms, were silenced under foreign flags and foreign gods. The missionaries, some sincere, came with crosses in one hand, but behind them followed gunboats, traders, and governors with contracts of domination. Baptismal fonts were built next to whips. Scriptures were preached beside swords. The story of Christ who came to liberate was too often retold in the language of control, and though many of those missionaries gave their lives in service, and some stood up to the powers of empire, the broader truth remains: the church did not always stand with the oppressed. Too often it stood with the conqueror. I confess this not as a political calculation, but as a moral reckoning. Because if the church is to truly mirror Christ, then it must weep where Christ would weep.